Well, I would like to say I think prezzies are so underrated. I know they were like a thing, 10 years ago, but I swear to God, I love prezzies so much. So today we are doing a prezzy. Um, Also, you guys may have noticed that this workshop is being recorded. And the reason we do that is so we can later post them on our YouTube channel, on Yes She Can's YouTube channel, just in case if, people couldn't make it or they discover us on YouTube, they can see that we have a writing workshop. And if you're not cool with the recorded aspect of it, that's totally fine. You can join us on another time when you're not being recorded. So if you feel uncomfortable at any point, you're free to leave. And then on alternating Thursdays, we have coffee chats, which are never recorded. So, those are more of a discussion and dialogue type of a thing. Just a little housekeeping and disclaimer. And during the beginning part of this, if you want to get up and go grab a paper and a pen for writing, or you want to grab your tablet or a laptop because we will be writing later, you won't interrupt anyone. Just go do your thing. It's cool. You need a drink, go get that. All good. And yeah, I think those are all of the housekeeping things. Well, hello. I know everybody here, but welcome to the Write With Me workshop. As you know, my name is Sarah Weezar. I go to UTEP. I am in the Creative Writing MFA program. Cross your fingers. I will graduate. I'm supposed to defend my thesis in April and hoping everything goes well. I have a bachelor's degree in graphic design where I double minored in communication studies and creative writing. So, as you can tell, I love writing. And on the work side of things, I do work here with Yes She Can and also with UTEP's community esports team. So, right with me. Let's move on to the next Prezi part. Does anybody else see those lines on the screen? You do? Oh no, I don't know how to get rid of that. Yup, no clue how to get rid of that. That's so strange. I'm sorry, guys. We might just have to do the presentation with those weird lines there. Okay, so this workshop is going to work in a section of 3 to 4 parts. It will be the basics. It will be then talking about poetics, which are not what you may think. And in general, I think this workshop is going to be something you didn't expect. So I'm excited for that. And then we will have a writing portion and then just some suggested reading that, comes from some of the examples that I'm going to talk about. So to lead into the idea that we were talking about earlier before the workshop started, where creative writing and traditional writing, quotes, are totally not the same um, in a literary sense. So when your writing intentionally veers off of the traditional path with voice and a plot, with spelling, punctuation, that's when you enter in the realm of creative writing. Um, like all writing, you should strive to have good spelling, grammar, punctuation. This workshop is not about having good grammar, spelling, or punctuation, just so you know. And I still struggle with things like grammar. There's things like past. I know what past tense is, but like present voice and like active voice, like those things confuse me. So like, don't worry, guys. Like, I'm about to get a master's degree in creative writing, and sometimes I still get confused. It's fine. This stuff is not easy. So don't feel bad whatsoever. So again, like all writing, you should strive to have, minimal grammatical errors and things like that. But creative writing heavily considers the author's innate voice. So that's your voice. Whether that voice is yours, whether that voice is something you want to experiment with, or even if that voice doesn't belong to you, because we have the ability to write fictional stories about real life people. So if I wanted to, I could have Dulce as my main protagonist in like a crazy, hobbit like adventure. Her voice is not my voice, and we're not the same. And she didn't go on this crazy adventure, but I want to experiment with her voice. And that is the intentionality of being creative. So that's where that comes in. And what the heck is writing anyway? You know, in our writing foundations, we hear things like you need a beginning and a middle and an end. There's got to be a linear plot, conflict. Think about like your timeline. Who's the main protagonist? Who's the main antagonist? um like what's the story arc, what's the resolution. I want to underscore the importance of knowing that those things exist, because having an idea, like kind of honoring those foundations, will get you to the ability to write creatively. So on the other side here we have what's creative writing, and as you can see, it's a lot of these same topics that we have in our writing foundations, but they're uniquely integrated. It's possible that you have a conflict in your mind, but you don't have any characters yet. You just want to write a story about like how I got so upset that I tripped over a rock on my sidewalk and I need somebody to blame. Um, in creative writing, your writing may not always happen step by step, and that's cool if it does. That's totally fine. um but sometimes it doesn't happen that way, and that's absolutely 110% cool. All righty, next topic. And if you guys have any questions, um just write them in the chat, and then we'll have like a segment afterward where um ooh, sorry, I need to let someone in, where I'll answer questions and things like that. So, next section, we've got poetics. Okay, before we move on, I want to know if anybody knows what I'm talking about. And you can either unmute yourself or write it in the chat. But I'm very curious to know if you guys know what I mean by poetics. And let me pull up the chat here. No clue, Sandra says. All right, that's great. Then I am so happy that you're here. So excited to have you. You're going to learn what they are.
I figured it was going to be like poetry.
All right, that's a good guess. If it isn't if it isn't related to poetry, I don't know either. Dun dun dun. Well, I'm going to tell you guys. But first, um it's a concept I learned during the first semester of graduate school. And I also didn't know what it was either. I'm not in college for poetry, man. Like I want to write stories. And the best way that I could compare it is almost like a statement of purpose in a way, if you guys are familiar with that. So your poetics, and no, not like poetry. Ah, scary. Not like poetry. So your poetics, and writing them down, is a chance for you to write down your own philosophies, your own beliefs, your own inspirations, all in regards to how they have shaped your path, and also how you'd like those things to continue shaping either your current path or your anticipated path as they relate to your current work or your career, your projects, area of study. So back when we were, fresh graduate students and we were asked to write our poetics, we were kind of thinking in terms of like during the next 3 years of our graduate degree, like what do we want our focus to be? And how can we channel like all of those inspirations into one cohesive page? And your poetics are extremely unique to you. You everybody's poetics are going to be different. It's like your thumbprint, right? You can have maybe some of the same inspirations, but the way that you interpret those are never going to be the same as everybody else's because you just have a different life, you know? And the best way I could put it too is that your poetics are an accumulation of all of those little thoughts that you have in your head about why you are the way you are, what influences you on a day to day, and how those things influence you at your core, like your soul almost. I know it's kind of hippie. Dulce's down for that. She's super hippie. I know that. So, again, we're gonna write our poetics later, and after today, once you write them down, I really encourage you to go back and look at them at some point in the future, either a week or a year, 5 years from now, because you might change and your poetics might change, and that's good. And if they don't change, that's good too. Typically, as writers, we internalize everything that we hear, everything that we see, from the flower like sprouting in your garden to the weird cow magnet on your fridge. I have a weird cow magnet on my fridge. Everything, even to the crusted sand on your shoelace from a hike that you took last week. Everything, everything is an inspiration. And one of my most favorite concepts that um, I learned a while back, excuse me, is that writers are benevolent cannibals who eat the world. And that stuck with me when I read that. That comes from imaginative writing by Janet Burroway in her 1971 version. It's kind of like a workbook type of thing. If you're into like writing prompts, highly recommend that book. It is freaking awesome. But like for years that has stuck in my head. Writers are benevolent cannibals who eat the world. Sometimes I like to say who consume the world, but potato, potato. So these ideas may sound weird, and you may be like, what the heck are you talking about, Sarah? Well, because they are weird. Like they just are. And that's where writing creatively comes from. And me and Carla were talking about this just earlier, that not everybody's mind works in that way, um and I kind of feel the same about like math and science, things like that. But for those of you here who feel like you're not the best writer, I would say, number one, again, so happy to have you here. I am so happy that you're here. Very excited. And two, you are much more of a creative writer and a creative thinker than you think that you are, because I guarantee that your creativity just shines in different ways. So whether you're developing a schedule, there's people who develop schedules for themselves and they use like sticky notes and stuff. That's so creative, man. When you're solving a problem, when you're solving a math problem, when you're trying to find some sort of solution, in a factory because you're a mechanical engineer or whatnot, you do have to think creatively a lot of times in order to find solutions. And it's kind of the same idea that we have here at Yes You Can, is that everybody's an engineer, whether we know it or not. So, me, a creative writer, I can be an engineer sometimes, even if it's in a different context, you know? But these things like art, creativity, engineering, they're all intimidating in their own ways, but luckily these subjects are gaining so much of a broader kind of definition. And of course we do still need, those traditional thinkers, but for people like us who maybe engineers but want to learn about writing, that's why we're here today, to meet in the middle ground, in the gray space, even if it feels weird. So, back to poetics. Um, Again, it's about channeling all of those times you were present in the world, observing the now, all of the times you felt liberated and unfiltered. Poetics is a matter of gut feeling, intuition, exploring your motives and decision making processes. It's just as creative as it is intentional. And I would say that is the same for creative writing. Creative writing is very fun, but a lot of the times there needs to be some sort of intention. Even if you don't know what the heck you're doing, maybe that's your intention. You don't know what you're doing, but you got to face it and just like write something, you know? And so while your poetics may contain some forward thinking moments, it is very much an act of engaging in the now. The person who you are now is not always the person who you're going to be, as I said before. And that's neither good nor bad, because the way that you feel about yourself tomorrow exists completely in the unknown. You don't know how you're going to wake up tomorrow feeling. So that's why your poetics kind of stands to remind you of your path, where you're going, and if you do change, you can see how you've changed. So it's almost like, I don't want to equate it to a time capsule, because your poetics can stay the same forever. You might have extremely strong motivations, and that's also very, very awesome. But bottom line, your poetics is a collection or like a page or two about specifically what moves you in the context of your current work, your current project, maybe your current, mm, what else did I say before? Current work, current project. I don't know, something that's going on in your life that you're working towards. So you put those things on the page, and that gives you the ability to zoom out, and see what has resulted thus far. With all of those things in your mind, you're able to get a very good scope of where you might be going. So, next, I'm going to give some examples of poetics. And I would like to mention that the authors that I'm going to talk about, I don't believe that they ever gave like their specific poetics, because they're, from the 1900s and whatnot. Um, but I just accumulated what I really feel defines them and their poetics. So the first, oh my man, we have Walt Whitman. Guys, this man was a progressive genius, I swear. So all of the themes in his work are things like democracy, equality, humility, self-love, being just, being fair. And he was very much into finding like just ways to be human, like be nice and be caring and still live in a thriving democracy. So he wasn't necessarily into politics, but that really interested him. And there's two examples that I have here, but I'm going to read you, just for the sake of time, I'm going to read you the bottom one, called America. It says, "Center of equal daughters, equal sons, all alike endeared, grown, ungrown, young or old, strong, ample, fair, enduring, capable, rich, perennial with the earth, with freedom, law, and love. A grand, sane, towering, seated mother, chaired in the amendment of time. So this guy's most prominent work is called Leaves of Grass. He published and published and published it like many times to add new poems. And he talks a lot about equality between men and women and things like that. So um, I could go on about this guy. I absolutely love him. Leaves of Grass, highly recommend. The next person here I want to talk about is Franz Kafka. Polar opposite of Walt Whitman, honestly. Kafka is like the king, to my knowledge, of this concept called magical realism. Um, the story he's most known for is something called The Metamorphosis, where this guy literally wakes up a cockroach. Like he wakes up a cockroach and all of his family are grossed out by him. Um, and it takes a little while. It takes like more than one read to understand, like, no, he means a cockroach. And it's like, what do you mean? Like, no, it's not metaphorical. Like, this guy's a cockroach now. So, Franz Kafka is really good at people who want to look at themes of altered reality, unreal reality, impossible reality, existence, consciousness, subconsciousness. He's very solemn and kind of morbid, very dreamlike and abstract. And the main takeaway that I received from him is to write whatever the heck you want, because why not? Like if you have this idea where this guy just wakes up as a cockroach one day and all of his family are disgusted by him, like just do it. Like why not? You know? It's so strange. And so I want to just read to you guys a little bit from his diaries, which were published posthumously, and I think I got that word right. And it's quite controversial because his friend published his diaries, and I don't know that he was supposed to, but he did it anyway. I don't know, but I digress. So on July 13th, I don't know what year, he says, um, then open yourself. Let the human person come forth. Breathe in the air and the silence. Very abstract, but you can kind of like feel the freedom there almost. Another one from December the 26th. 2.5 days. Oh, I'm a little bit confused. Sorry. 2.5 days I was, though completely not alone, and already I am, if not transformed, at any rate on the way. Being alone has a power over me that never fails. My interior dissolves, for the time being only superficially, and is ready to release whatever lies deeper. A slight ordering of my interior begins to take place, and I need nothing more, for disorder is the worst thing in small talents. He was very self deprecating, also, as you can tell. He's calling himself a small talent, which he wasn't, obviously. He was very famous. Another one, I write differently from what I speak. I speak differently from what I think. I think differently from the way I ought to think, and so it all proceeds into deepest darkness. I don't know, man, but I think Franz Kafka was like the OG emo guy, because that's what it seems like. Um, the Metamorphosis, it's part of the public domain, so you can find it anywhere, really. And then his Kafka's diaries, they're intense, also highly recommend. The last person, oh, I love this man as well. Um, the reading, okay, so his name is Rainer Maria Rilke, or Rilke. I don't know how to say his full name. This guy, honestly, like changed my life. I can't even tell you. So he's most famous for this series called Letters to a Young Poet, where he had been giving advice to some young dude. Um, and here his themes are of love and of nature, you know, like mother nature, to being humble, respectful, patience, enduring kind of tough situations, being helpful, mindful, and like Walt Whitman, equality. Um, and I want to read you a couple of things, and these are a little bit longer, but from his letters to a young poet. And I think I'll read the last two, or should I? Maybe I'll read all of them. I have like maybe a couple of minutes. So, okay. The first one: the wish that you may find enough patience in yourself to endure, and enough simplicity to believe that you may gain more and more confidence in that which is difficult. So, I mean, it's all about kindness, but it's like you got to face the things that are hard and hopefully you can find some confidence in them. Second one: as a few works of aesthetic read as few works of aesthetic criticism as possible. Works of art are of an infinite loneliness, and nothing can reach them so little as criticism. Only love can grasp them and keep hold of them and be just to them. Always trust yourself and your own feelings as opposed to any such analysis, review, or introduction. If you should be wrong, then the natural growth of your inner life will lead you slowly and in time to new realizations. Allow your judgments their own quiet, undisturbed development. This advice to the young poet came from, I think the young poet had written something, and you know how critics are. They like gave him a bad review basically. And this Rainer Maria guy was like, dude, don't worry about it. Like, just keep writing. Like, there's nothing, like, the writing process can be so lonely that their criticisms can't even penetrate your work. Like, and it's kind of like a gentle way of urging this kid to be a little bit more confident, because what other people say like doesn't really matter. And if he comes to the realization like, oh, maybe they were right, you can totally accept that. And that's just your path, you know. If you're on the right path, you'll realize things, and it's really that simple. um all right, I think maybe I'll just read the last one. So, if you attach yourself to nature, to the simple and small in her, which hardly anyone sees, but which can so unexpectedly turn into the great and immeasurable. If you have this love for what is slight and try quite simply as a servant to win the confidence of what appears to you poor, then everything will become easier for you, more uniform, and somehow more reconciling, not perhaps in the understanding, which holds back in amazement, but in your innermost consciousness, watchfulness, and knowledge. And that's a fancy way of saying appreciate the simple things, because if you can appreciate those simple things, then you you will find more fulfillment in life. And there's times where we think like, if I'm gonna be the best writer, like I'm gonna get the best pens and like the coolest freaking notebook and like the most expensive laptop, and then I'm gonna be a great writer. But no, that's not true. You know, it's kind of like I've done this before with art where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get these cool color pencils. I'm a graphic designer, but um I understand that like a weakness of mine is drawing. So there was one time where I'm like, I'm gonna get these cool watercolor pencils and I'm gonna like be such a good drawer. Ask me if I use those watercolor pencils. I use them like once. And you know, there's people who can draw the most amazing things with a freaking ballpoint pen. Like, it really doesn't matter the kind of fancy mediums that you have. You know, it really matters what you have to bring to the table, you know? Excuse me, your intention really matters. All right. So, we're at 5:30. Let's get to the writing, and I will keep this screen up But I just want to review a couple of things. So you will be writing your, oh shoot, you will be writing your poetics, and hopefully I have given you sufficient examples. Um, while you write, you can feel free to turn off your camera, leave your camera on, mute yourself, unmute yourself, whatever inspires you. If you unmute yourself, just like don't distract other people, you know. Some questions to keep in mind when writing are, what am I working on that fulfills me and brings me joy? How do I want to show up when I'm working on those things or that thing? Uh-oh, let me go back. What core inspirations led me here? And be specific. So if that's a movie or a show or a person or a quote, being specific is really, really important in your poetics. Even if it was something that happened to you when you were a little baby, like those things are so important. And what things outside of work and school, um, I mean, I don't know if everybody works or goes to school, but what kind of things outside of that main like subject you're working on, outside of that, what things influence you and how do you want to show up in the world with those influences? So we will have about 15 minutes to write, and everybody's welcome to share their poetics. And if you want to share your poetics when the time is up, um, just keep in mind we're recording. No lewd, vulgar language. I don't think anybody would do that, but you know, housekeeping stuff. Um, and because we're like purposes of time, keep your writing to one page maximum. I don't know if anybody will get to one page because this is honestly really hard. um Working physically, says Sandra. Yeah, so Sandra, I know you are working on a house project, so maybe your poetics could have something to do with how, like, the motivations that you have for doing those house projects and completing them successfully, and perhaps what will continue to motivate you throughout like renovating the rest of your house. So yeah, if you want to share, just, you know, be nice. And that's it. So right now it is 5:34, and in 15 minutes that it will be 34, 44. Let's do, okay, maybe we're gonna do less time, okay? Because I really want to get to answering some questions that we had. So let's do till 5:45 and go. Write your poetics, y'all. I'm gonna mute myself, and I'm going to um turn off my video so that I'm not distracted by, or that you're not distracted by me. Just a little warning, 5 minutes left. All right, so um, go ahead and finish up. I don't know about you guys, but that was really hard for me. And I only got one paragraph done. I'm over here thinking like, yeah, one page. No, it was hard. And I've done this before. And just so you know, when we were asked to do this in my first semester of graduate school, this is a project that we worked on for like 2 weeks. So asking everybody to do this in 10 minutes is very, very difficult. But hopefully it gives you like a jumping off point. into writing creatively, because this is the time to express all of those like weird crazy metaphors that you know, just that come into your mind, you know. So I'm gonna share mine quickly, and maybe that'll give other people the confidence to share theirs. And yeah, think about what it was like writing your poetics. So I'm really embarrassed to share mine. I'm kind of nervous, but as the host of this workshop, I'm gonna have to, right? So what I wrote was, dun dun dun. It is my belief that nature and love ground me. Perhaps I'm a seed that never stops growing, persistent through rain, snow, and doubt. An end of a chapter is near, but I think I'm a perennial, or maybe something else, a cactus or a succulent, that can flourish year round even after a bad season. I have a small hybrid cactus that I'm learning how to take care of. Too much water is bad, and it needs just the right amount of sunlight. Two different cacti were cut and grafted onto each other as one. It was given to me by a friend, and it too came into this world grounded by nature and love. And that is my poetics. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Anybody else want to share their poetics, what they wrote?
Goodness, after hearing that one, Sarah, I'm even embarrassed to share mine. Mine
Oh
is
my
so here and
goodness.
now.
No, honestly, your poetics are awesome. And you know why they're awesome? Because they're yours and they're nobody else's. They're yours and they're awesome.
Well, I don't mind sharing mine if nobody wants to share theirs right now.
Let's hear it.
Anybody? Well, as Sarah mentioned, we are working on a remodel renovation upstairs. And really, what keeps me motivated, I have here, what keeps me motivated is seeing the end results as it becomes more and more beautiful. And as always, it's my family that inspires me to do these things because now, once unused room is finally going to get life. It's going to be used. I can already hear my kids laughing and enjoying a movie, studying, my grandchildren giggling or playing games. So once an unused and cold room is going to finally have family and life and love. That's what I
I
wrote.
love that. That is so awesome. I really,
Yeah,
really love that.
thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. And
You're
now
welcome.
you guys can see like my whole desktop, huh? I don't know how to like make that different, but that's all right. I'm gonna just whoop, do that. Would anybody else like to
That was
share?
I'll read my poetics.
Woo, woo, woo. Yes.
Okay. I have long lost my train of thought, and it's been a while since I came to say hello and embrace my being. Even the universe has responded to my longing through this meeting. And as I wander freely through the soft soil path of the peaceful forest I treasure in my thoughts, I have a recollection of the intense emotions that have been slumbering in the recent past. I bring my attention to my present and I think of my aspirations and remember who I am and the fueling fire in my core, begging to feel again, to feel everything, the keys on my fingertips, the singing in my head, the aching of my heart, and that alone is enough for now to push me another breath and another day. The end.
Yay, bravo. Oh my gosh, thank you guys so much.
Thank
How
you.
did that feel to write that? Like Sandra and Duna said, you don't have to share, but you know, the puppy's asking you, what is it like writing your poetics?
It's peaceful and liberating and
Yeah, right.
exciting.
Yeah, I
and you
completely
get to
agree.
share what was actually inside your heart. You
Mm-hmm.
put it on paper, so it's nice.
Yep. Oh, I am so happy right now. And I'm glad you guys felt that because that's exactly what I felt during that crazy first semester of grad school. Writing my poetics gave me an avenue to put meaning to all of those little tiny things that I just had inside of me. And um one of the questions, and I guess I should pull it up here again, but we have a couple of questions, and one of them is, how do you get in the habit of writing and writing creatively? And I think the way that you start is by releasing things, into the world and making them real. A lot of the time people start writing by journaling, and that's cool and that's okay. And if you maybe at one point feel like you're done with journaling, then maybe you can, take the next step and write a short story, or maybe you can write like a graphic novel or something, or a novella. And a novella is just a long short story. Another is creative writing difficult? I would say no, but that's just me. Everybody here did it. So, I mean, can it be difficult? Yeah, it can. But again, it's what you bring to the table. And if writing is just really not for you, that's okay too. You can channel your creativity, in a different way. What is the best way to start writing a book? Funny that you ask, because I still don't know. But I'm in the process of writing a book myself, and I had no clue how to do that. My advisor is just like an actual angel. Like, he had me write sequences, like a list of things, a list of events that directly involve my protagonist, and then in between those things, um write sequences that involve other characters as they pertain to the protagonist. And so it's really just a very small build up from there. So that's a really great question, and that's the only answer I have for now. I don't know. He has been just honestly the best mentor I could have ever asked for when writing a book. I love to read poetry, so learning about it would be awesome. Unfortunately, this was not about poetry. Um, but I mean, you can definitely apply this to poetry. And the number one advice I would say when you're writing poetry, it does not have to rhyme. I learned that in graduate school. Like, you don't have, well, I don't know about graduate school or my undergrad, but um yeah, poems. I had an epiphany one time that songs are literal poems. Like, I don't know if anybody else had made that connection ever in their life. I don't know about you guys, but songs are poems. And if you look at the lyrics of a song, without listening to the song, you really connect with it so much more differently than you do when you get all of the instruments, because when you're reading it, you're getting the raw emotion that, like, the artist wrote these words down without any music at one point. And I think that's like crazy how they put all the music together and stuff. But I'm sorry that this workshop may have tricked you into thinking we were going to talk about poetry. um, and then creative writing, an example be when a story begins at the end. Yeah, so from jumping in the timeline is totally an example. And I can actually recommend something, this crazy, crazy book. It's called On a Winter's Night, A Traveler by Italo Calvino. Let me write it in the chat. Winter's Night, A Traveler by Italo Calvino. And that one is a crazy book that like acknowledges that it's a book. Um, Very strange, very meta. And lastly, does anybody have any more questions? Is what I should really be asking before I move on. And if anybody else would like to share or just comment or say anything, you are more than welcome to do so. If not, we will move on to the suggested reading. So the suggested readings here are the things that I talked about in the examples. So that's Janet Burroway's imaginative writing. Honestly, that I can just go on, like all of these things like honestly changed my path of being a writer. But if you are looking for um something to learn from and also give you prompts, I really recommend Janet Burroway's 1971 version of imaginative writing. um Rainer Maria Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet, I believe that's part of the public domain, but if you want it, I have a PDF, but I have highlights on it. So, I mean, if you want it, like, I'll share it with you. You just have to ignore my notes. Franz Kafka, The Metamorphosis, totally part of the public domain. Franz Kafka Diaries, not part of the public domain, so you'll probably have to buy that one. Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass, that is totally part of the public domain. And you can find it in a lot of places. And I would really like to say support local, buy secondhand. Secondhand books are freaking awesome because you see everybody else's notes. And so when I'm on Amazon looking for a used book, I don't get the ones that are like in good condition. I try to get the ones that are in like so condition, because then I don't know, it just has like this vibe about it, like where people have written on here and like use the book. I don't know. It's just kind of magical. So locally you can go to Literarity Bookshop. It's on the west side, kind of far for some people. Online you can do thrift books. I've gotten books from there too. It's really great. Online you can also do Goodwill Books, and it's kind of like an auction type of a thing. Um, and it's awesome. I love supporting Goodwill. And then around town, you can find these like little library case things called Little Free Library. And you can go to littlefreelibrary.org to find your nearest one. And free at your own discretion, disclaimer, we do not support stealing people's work. But there's a site called readanybook.com. Um, so there's that if you want. I've never personally read anything from there because I really enjoy um, having like the physical book. So I've never used it, but it exists. You know, some people are in college and they broke, you know, I don't know, your choice. And then I'm gonna paste, excuse me, the public Prezi. Uh, so if you wanna look at this presentation again for whatever reason, I'm gonna put it in the chat. But otherwise, that is it for today, unless anyone has any other questions or anything like that. Um, Thank you so much for being here with me today. I had so much fun. I'm very passionate about this topic, and I was honestly so nervous, but I think I made it through. Thank you so much, everybody, for sharing. And have a wonderful weekend, man. Have a good one.
How often do you do your workshops?
So Yes You Can has workshops, different workshops every other Thursday. So it's a workshop and then a coffee chat and then a workshop. So next week we'll have a coffee chat, and those are not recorded and they're more of like a discussion thing. So we'll bring sometimes a controversial topic, sometimes a fun topic to talk about. And we have them, you know, each on alternating weeks. And
Sarah, do you all have any of those groups where you read a book and then you kind of get together and discuss it? Do you know of anybody that does that?
book clubs, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
no. I mean,
Okay.
I know of one book club. It's like a worldwide book club. It's called Life's
Hmm.
Library.
Oh, okay.
And let me look it up.
No,
Life.
that's okay. That's fine. I just wasn't sure if UTEP offered anything like that.
You know what? I don't know.
Mhm.
I imagine there is some sort of a book club. Um, the reason I'm mentioning Life's Library is because my favorite author, one of my favorites, John Green, he actually started this thing, and you can either buy the book, with their subscription, or you could just read the book with them. You don't have to buy anything, to be a part of the book club. But yeah.
Great, thank you. Awesome
Right.
presentation. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. I want to also link our social media stuff, and we'll have so the link tree link, every time we have something going on, it'll be at the first tab, and you can sign up the same way that you signed up for the workshop today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so next week when we have a coffee chat, you'll see it's like, oh, sign up for coffee chat here. And if you follow us on Instagram, that's where we post primarily when things are happening.
I actually
Thank you
saw
so much for the workshop, Sarah.
Yeah, of course, for sure. Right
I
on
saw this
time,
one on
6 p.m.
Facebook. So
I'm sorry?
I saw this one on Facebook.
Oh, good thing I posted it. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna post it. So thanks so much for joining. It's really good to see you here.
You too. That was cool. I liked it. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Of course.
You're so
All right,
smart.
y'all. All right, everyone. We'll have a very good rest of your day and weekend. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
You're welcome.
Thank you.